pleasure to chant with you for a moment before Sadhvi's Satsang.
Shri Guru Charana Sarojana Raja Nijamana Mukuru Sudari Barano Ragu Bara Vimala Jasu Jodayako Falachari Buddhihina Tanu Janike Sumerom Pavanakuma Bala Buddhi Vidya Deo Mohi Haru Kale Sabikara Sihavara Ramachandra Paraje Sharana Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Jai Jai Hanuman Sankatamocha Jai Jai Hanuman Hanuman Jai Jai Hanuman Sankatamocha Jai Jai Hanuman Hanuman Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram 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 Jai Jai Hanuman Sankatamocha Jai Jai Hanuman Hanuman Sitaram, 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 Jai Jai Hanuman. Sitaram, 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 Jai Jai Hanuman. Jai Jai Hanuman. Sankatamocha. Jai Jai Hanuman, Hanuman. Jai Jai Hanuman, Sankatamocha. Jai Jai Hanuman, Hanuman. Jai Shri Krishna.
Thank you, Adam. What a beautiful, beautiful way to begin satsang, especially today on Ram Navami, the day that Bhagwan Ram incarnated here on earth to begin with such a beautiful, heart-opening, juicy, devotion-filled prayer to love for, invocation to Lord Ram was so beautiful. Thank you so much. What a gift.
My pleasure. Much love to you all.
Karen, I can't hear you.
They have. Let me see. There. Okay. So sorry.
No.
All right. Well, Jay Gange. Okay. We do have a question. It's a two-part question and it's quite long, so I think I'll ask the first part and then come back because it'll be a good second question. It says, while following COVID guidelines, the numbers are still increasing in India. So how do we take this seriously without being in fear of death? How do you deal with COVID once you've tested positive? And what is the healthy mental perspective?
So it's a really beautiful opportunity to understand the place where body and our responsibility to that body meets spirituality. Because unfortunately, far too many people, in the name of faith in God or the name of religion or the name of anything connected to their faith, to their religion, to their spiritual practice, are not observing proper protocols, not wearing masks, not social distancing, not being careful, because in their mind, well, God will protect me. And it reminds me of one of my favorite stories, which is the story of a man who was a great devotee of God. And one day there was this big flood, and the first floor of his home started to flood. Everybody else was evacuating. But he said, no, God will take care of me. And so the first floor became full of water. He went to the second floor. And out the window of his second floor window, a boat came by. And the boat said, come out the window. We'll save you. The people in the boat yelled at him, said, please come out. Come onto our boat. We will save you. And he said, no, I don't need to be saved. God will save me. God will protect me. The floodwaters rose and rose. He went to the roof of his home. A helicopter flew overhead. They dropped down a rope and they said, grab on. We'll save you. He said, no, I don't need it. God will save me. Finally, the floodwaters rose and the man tragically died. And when he came face to face with God after death, he was angry. And he said, God, I always had faith in you. I always knew that you were going to protect me. What happened? And God said, well, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. What else could I do? And for me, that story really is a beautiful indication and a beautiful reminder that God, when God takes care of us, it's not that God somehow shows up on our doorstep in this beautiful blue body with a flute or with a bow and arrow, or that God appears in the form of whoever we worship. It's not that we literally are going to open our door one day and see Shankar Bhagwan standing on our doorstep, or somehow see this, long hair, long beard vision that other people have of God. That's not it. God appears to us through the creation that God has given us. God appears to us through the intelligence that God has given us. God appears in all of the ways that our beautiful saints and sages and rishis have given us, and prophets have given us so many examples throughout history of how God appears. And it's in the form of a butterfly, or it's in the form of a passing bird, or it's in the form of something someone says, or it's in the form of an awareness that appears to us. So with regard to COVID, and this pertains to any other illness, this body that we've been given is a temple. In Hindi we say, sharir ek mandir hai. The body is a temple. And in the same way that we protect, care for, love our temples, in the same way we must care for this body. This body is the medium through which we experience our true self. We are not the body, but the body enables us, through our very physical brains, enables us to experience the truth of who we are. It is this body-brain complex that says to us, it's time to meditate, that is able to, chant japa on my mala, that is able to recite God's name in my mind, that is able to have the power of discrimination, to see the truth, to know the truth. So this body, and we've only got one, is our opportunity for awakening. This body is our opportunity to know God. Therefore, it is essential that we do whatever we can to protect it. Also, though, with COVID, there's another aspect, which is the community. We do not live in a vacuum. We are members of a community, whether it's our conscious community, our Sangha that we have specifically chosen to be part of, or whether it's the neighborhood we live in, the office place we work in, the grocery stores we shop in. We are members of that community. And even though a lot of people may feel very confident, oh, nothing is going to happen to me, I am young, or I'm healthy, I'm strong, I'll be protected. We are responsible for the other members of our community as well. When we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is a family, it reminds us to take care of that family. And so in the same way, you may get COVID, you may be COVID positive, and you may feel nothing. But if you're not testing, and so you don't know you're positive, or you're not staying home, you are putting the community at risk. People who are elderly, people who are immunocompromised, you're putting them at risk. And in the same way that even if you may choose to smoke cigarettes, you could not blow smoke in the face of an elderly, immunocompromised woman or man with emphysema and lung cancer or lung disease. You would never do that. You would know, okay, I've made the choice to harm my body through smoking cigarettes, but I'm not going to kill someone else. So you would never do that. You would blow your smoke away from them. You would turn your head. In the same way, it's just that much awareness and consideration that is being asked of you. Recognize that other people may not have as robust immunities as you do. And while this body is a temple and we are guided to care for it, sure, it's your prerogative if you want to eat junk food, get sick, smoke cigarettes, do other things to harm you. But it is not your right to harm others. When we are given freedom and free will, that is not to inflict harm upon others. That is why whatever laws we look at, whether laws of our society, laws of our religion, laws of our dharma, laws of yoga, yam and niyam of yoga, they are all rooted in the awareness of our responsibility to be conscientious, careful, compassionate, responsible members of a community. Whether we look at 10 Commandments, whether we look at Yam and Niyam, whatever we look at, we are being implored to care for others. So if you can't care for yourself, follow the COVID protocols, because all of our Dharma, every single one of us, our Dharma on earth, as a member of the earth community, is to do whatever we can do to protect and preserve and serve. that sacred creation. And if you have tested positive, don't despair. Don't despair. Even with an illness with 2 or 3% death rate or 1% in some places, that's still a 97, 98, 99% recovery rate. So don't despair. Boost your immunity. Do all of the things that you know to do to keep your physical immunity strong. Take all of the herbs, eat the good food, drink your herbal remedies, get lots of sleep, get sunshine. Stay home, of course, to protect others. But also remember your spiritual immunity. Because we are not a body over here, a mind over there, and a spirit somewhere else. We are a body-mind complex that is infused with spirit and that intersects and interacts with spirit. We're not the spirit. We're not the body, we're not the mind, we are the spirit. The spirit is not the body or the mind. And the body and the mind are infused by spirit, with spirit, impacted by spirit. We are in a relationship, the body and the mind and the spirit. And so that which spiritually we are experiencing is impacting our body and our mind. There's lots of scientific evidence showing how what we think, what we feel, how we believe, our faith, our spirituality, how that impacts not just the peace and the joy of our mind, but also our physical immunity. So boost your spiritual immunity. Meditate, pray, chant, do yoga. Listen to beautiful kirtan. This is the time you're going to be home for at least 14 days, bare minimum. Use this time. Watch all of those lined up. Satsang, meditation, kirtan, kathas that you've been wanting to. Read the books you've been wanting to read. And of course, have compassion for yourself. Because there will be moments that you don't feel like watching something spiritual or reading a book, and you just feel like watching something funny on TV. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Have full compassion for yourself. Laughter is a beautiful, beautiful remedy. No problem. But balance it. There will be times when you feel stronger, especially if you're asymptomatic. You may not have any symptoms at all. So in those cases, really utilize this time such that when you emerge from it, you're not just COVID negative, but you are life positive, spirit positive, love positive. And then it'll be something you look back on as really a very critical and very beautiful moment in your life.
Hi. Okay, for the second part of the question, it says, what is a healthy perspective on death? And to go right from life to death. But it says in the Indian tradition, our death is predetermined, so we know death will come to us when it's time. What's your take on that?
Death is the only non-negotiable. Death is the only given. If we are born, we will die. There's no two ways about it. Spirituality, even enlightenment, is not an inoculation against death. When we pray, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamsoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. O Lord, lead us from untruth, from falsehood to truth. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. It doesn't mean, oh God, take this physical body and make it immortal. It doesn't mean make this physical body defy every law of nature that you, God, have created. It doesn't mean that. We know that the laws of nature are binding. Everything that was created will dissipate. In the Hindu tradition, we speak about Lord Brahma as the creator, Lord Vishnu as the sustainer, and Lord Shiva as not the destroyer, I don't like to use that word, but the dissolver, the one who dissolves the old in order to create space for the new creation of Brahma. So it's a cycle. But I've never heard of a situation where it says, well, Shiva's optional. If you really, really want, you can just have Brahma and Vishnu. No need for that disillusion. Shiva, Bhagwan Shiva, is God. Why in the world would we want to be without Lord Shiva? But with Lord Shiva comes that awareness of dissolution. And so we take death as a given. It is the only way to take death. And yes, there's fear, of course. There's fear of the unknown. There's fear of dissolving into what? But the issue with that is the soul doesn't go anywhere. It's only the body and parts of the mind. Parts of the mind come with us, of course. They come with us. The subtle body travels with us. The impressions upon the mind, the samskaras, chitta, comes with us. But the ego, the way that we identify, part of the ego comes with us as well in the impressions, in the man. That stays with us. Life after life until we work through it. But this physical body and the way that we interact with our ego, the way that the ego says, this is who I am. These are my relationships. This is my title. This is my role. This is me. The part of the ego that says that, and of course the physical body itself, the relationships, the roles, the titles, they dissolve. And that's very, very scary if that's what we've always identified as. And that is why it is so essential when you are alive to connect with the soul, to understand the soul, to understand that that is who you are. So that when the body is dropped, you know, I'm still here. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna reminds us, who you are cannot be cut by knives, burned by fire, wet by the wind. Sorry, wet by water, dried by the wind. Cannot be. Knives can't cut it. Fire can't burn it. Water can't wet it. The wind can't dry it. Who you are is unburnable, uncuttable, undryable, unwettable. Who you are is eternal. Who you are was never born, will never die. Connect with that while you are here, so that at that time of transition, you know, I'm still here. It's like that beautiful, beautiful teaching of Paramhans Ramakrishna. After he passed on, left his body, his wife, Sharda Devi, was removing her bangles. It's a tradition in India that when a woman becomes widowed, she removes her bangles. But Sharda Devi had married Ramakrishna when she was only a child. So her wrist had grown significantly from a child to an adult. So she no longer could remove the bangles. They wouldn't go over her wrist. And so she was taking a hammer and about to hammer them, to remove them, to break them. And suddenly she hears Ramakrishna's voice and he says, Sharda, what are you doing? I haven't gone anywhere. I've only moved from one room to another room. And that is what we must remember. We are only moving from one room to another room.
Hi. Okay, we have one more. Oh, we do. We do have a question for you. Paul?
Yes. Ha bolo.
I don't know that he was going to ask a question, but if he wants to ask a question, go ahead.
My question is, what's the relationship between
आपकी आवाज नहीं.
Oh, you can't have, yeah.
But now I can hear you.
I want to know the relationship between mind and consciousness.
Mind and consciousness. Consciousness is pervasive. Consciousness is there whether we direct our mind to it or not. Now remember, of course, that these words that we speak about, this is semantics, this is language. We do the best that we can with language to dance around concepts and topics, but they are just limited by language, and especially when we're translating Sanskrit words into English. So consciousness is pervasive. It is always there. My consciousness exists and is present, whether my mind is focused on it or not. So I use the power of attention, the power of intention, the power of focus. These are powers of the mind. I use them to become aware of consciousness, to become aware of that which is not the thinking mind, which is not the physical body, but that which is the backdrop, you can say, for everything. That which runs through everything. That is consciousness. Now, it's like if you think about a movie theater and you've got a screen, and onto that screen, so many different movies are going to be played. But the screen is always there. So that screen is our consciousness. And the movies are our thoughts, our dramas, the monkey mind. But there is the being sitting in that movie theater, having the power to decide with the remote control, I'm going to watch another movie, or I'm going to turn off the movie and become aware of the screen. I'm going to meditate upon the screen onto which everything is being projected. And again, it's not a perfect metaphor by any means, because the viewer of the movie is not really connected to the screen in the way that we are one with our consciousness. So it's not a perfect analogy. Nonetheless, it helps a lot to think about it. So consciousness is that which is always present. If you think about being a young child, I was saying, I, me, mine. Then my body changed. I was still saying, I, me, mine. Body kept changing. Roles kept changing. Relationships kept changing. But I kept saying, I, me, mine. Who is that? Who is saying I? Everything. Everything is changing. Even my mind keeps changing. Sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. But I keep saying I. I say I am angry, I am sad, I am joyful, I am in bliss, I am this, I am that. Well, who is that I that is aware that there is anger happening? Who is that I? This is consciousness. But what we don't usually do is turn consciousness back onto itself. Turn that power of awareness, that intention of awareness, back onto that consciousness. So the mind is that which we can use to experience consciousness. Meaning, the mind is that which we can use to say, I am not the body. I am not my relationships. I am not my emotions. I am not my thoughts. I am not the fluctuation of the mind stuff, as we say. The mind is able to say, niti, niti, not this, not that. But then we hit this beautiful moment where the mind has to become quiet, because it no longer It no longer has anything to say, I am not this, I am not that. And in that moment, when the mind becomes quiet, we are able to exist just in the presence of consciousness, of the I that is not defined or limited, that is not part of the ego, but that is boundless, that is born, that is divine. So when we say use your mind wisely, this is what it means. Don't allow your mind to run away from you. Don't allow it to be used for jealousy and greed and competition and regret. Allow it to be used to discover and experience who you really are.
There's a very nice question from Isha. She's in the chat, but she doesn't have a camera, so she's asked me to ask her question. It's a dietary question.
Okay.
There she is. And she says, my question, she says, I use onion and garlic. Sometimes I use egg for beauty purposes, and I'm inclined towards spirituality, and she loves Krishna very much. She says that she wants to know, will he punish her because he doesn't like eating those things? And someone has me on there muted. And then she said, because sometimes she wants to know if she's going to be punished because they're prohibited in some scriptures. But she says she eats onion and garlic, but not eggs. Okay.
Beautiful. So let us talk about egg first. An egg is life. Every month when you menstruate, those are your eggs that have not been fertilized into a baby coming out as a menstrual period. Hens lay their eggs outside. Sometimes they're fertilized, sometimes they're not fertilized, but nonetheless, that egg is life. Now, if the egg has been fertilized, it's definitely life. When I was young, we used to go to this beautiful museum here in Los Angeles, and it was the Museum of Science and Industry. And it's a fantastic museum. If you are a parent in LA with children, or even an adult, it is a fantastic museum. So in that museum, there's a whole life sciences exhibit. And in that exhibit, they have eggs. There's an incubator with eggs. And it's kept very warm and in glass. And if you stand there long enough, you'll see one of the eggs start to kind of rock back and forth. And then they'll get a little crack in it. And slowly, 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 a very wet, sticky chicken head will poke its way through the crack in the egg. And then eventually it'll come out and wobble around. So that egg is life. When we speak about being a vegetarian, we are vegetarians because we deeply believe that someone else's life, a human, an animal, is not ours to use, to abuse, to consume. In the same way that we don't harm other humans, we don't harm other animals. Now, the egg, to eat an egg that's been fertilized is literally to kill the life that was in the process of forming in the egg. All of that goopy stuff in the egg is there so that the little chick fetus can eat it. and become a chicken. When the chicken comes out, there's no more white or yellow. The fetus of the chicken has eaten it in order to become a baby. So it's not put there for us to eat it. It's put there for baby chicks to eat it. Now, additionally to that, the industry of chicken, the way that the hens are kept, is such cruelty that even if it doesn't bother you to eat an egg, it should deeply bother you how the hens are kept. It is torture. They are kept in these tiny, tiny, tiny little cages, squeezed together with so many of them. Their beaks are cut off. Their claws are cut off, obviously with no anesthesia, so that they can't peck each other and hurt each other. These crates are stacked on top of each other, so when they defecate, it literally falls onto each other. And they're kept in situations with lights on all the time so that they keep producing more and more eggs. It's a very, very violent industry. So even if the egg itself for some reason doesn't bother you, the way that the hens are treated should deeply bother you. Now, we have a situation where you could say, well, what if I have my own farm? What if my hens are treated beautifully? They wander around outside. They're very, very happy. We never kill them to turn them into chicken or something to eat. They live out a beautiful natural life. And we don't fertilize the eggs. So there's never a life. It's just an egg that comes out of the hen as her menstrual period. It doesn't get fertilized by a rooster. Is that still wrong? And in my mind, on a moral level, I don't have much of a moral problem with that. But you really have to ask yourself, did God really intend for us to eat the menstrual cycle of another species? Like, really, is it possible that somehow there are nutrients that we need that exist only in another species' menstrual cycle? I can't believe that. There is no frame of reference, scientifically or spiritually, that would make me believe that I somehow need something that exists in a chicken's menstrual period. So I would suggest avoiding eggs for everything. I think you will feel clearer, cleaner on a spiritual level, on a moral level, and there's plenty of ways to get protein in vegetarian sources. So yeah, I would avoid eggs. And plenty of beauty products that are vegan, that are organic, that are sustainable, that are fair trade, that aren't harming anyone or anything. So you've got lots and lots of options. With regard to onions and garlic, now, onion and garlic are not non-vegetarian food. There is no animal that is being harmed by them any more than is being harmed by a potato or a carrot, right? They are root vegetables. So when you uproot a root, inevitably you're going to uproot some of the bugs in the ground. That's why some people don't eat potatoes. They also don't eat carrots. And they don't eat onions because in the uprooting of it, you are disturbing the earth. Most of us, even living lives committed to nonviolence, don't draw the line at root vegetables, but actually do eat root vegetables. And onions and garlic are actually fantastic for your health. There's lots of science showing how wonderful they are for your immunity, for your heart, for so much else. The reason that we are cautioned against eating them spiritually is that it is said that onions make you lethargic, that onions increase tamas, lethargy, and that garlic is said to be an aphrodisiac, that it makes you passionate, it increases rajas. And so people who are doing very deep and intense spiritual practice, who are embarking on a path of sadhana, are advised to avoid anything that increases tamas or rajas. So that's why traditionally the ashrams or the culture avoids onions and garlic. But on a personal level, I don't eat them normally. But if I feel myself getting sick, if my immunity is low, I will absolutely chop up a clove of raw garlic and swallow it with some water. It's a fantastic immunity booster. So I don't think that there's any moral or spiritual issue with it. But I do notice, for example, if I go to someone's home and they're not Indian, and the fact that I'm a vegan is difficult enough for them. The fact that I'm usually gluten-free makes it even more difficult. And so I tend not to mention to people, oh, by the way, you also have to avoid onions and garlic. Like, I also don't eat those. If someone's going through the trouble to cook me food at their home and has opened their home and their heart with such love, and I'm strictly vegan and they're going to abide by all of that, I don't mention the onion and garlic part. But what I do notice is that on mornings, if I have had, let's say that they made something with onions and garlic, I notice that the next morning when I wake up, it's much harder to sit for meditation. Not so much because I don't notice my mind being disturbed, but I notice my digestion being disturbed. I notice that they are very heavy on the digestion. And so for me, I choose to avoid them, because I've got a lot of faith in the scriptures. I've got a lot of faith in Ayurveda. And if so many very, very wise people have said better to avoid, why not? Why not take all of the help that we can get? And on the times when, either for an immunity situation or a situation where someone has cooked with it, it's just a little digestive upset. You go back to the sattvic diet and you recover. So I would say if you're using onions and garlic in beauty products, no problem whatsoever. If you eat them, go off them for a week or two and just notice. See what happens to your sadhana. See how your meditation is affected. And then you make the decision. But there's nothing that I think is morally or spiritually wrong with eating them or using them. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, day, morning, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you on Friday for meditation and back on Saturday for Satsang. So much love to you. Thank you so much to Karen for lovingly and beautifully moderating this, and to our beautiful team back in Rishikesh, Sevanandaji, Rishikumar, Ashish, and the whole team for doing this so beautifully. And of course to Adam Bauer for beginning this beautiful satsang with his sacred chanting. And happy Ram Navami to everyone. Let's really welcome Bhagwan Ram in our hearts and in our lives.